My parents handed my sister a $100,000 wedding gift like it was nothing, then looked me straight in the eye and said, "You don't deserve any help." That was the night I walked out and cut every line connecting us. I built my life in silence, no calls, no updates, just work and grit. 3 years later, my sister slowed her car in front of my $2 million home and called our mother, sobbing, asking why I had what she didn't. But the real twist isn't the house she saw that day. It's what she never expected to find behind the door. I grew up in a house where perfection wasn't just encouraged, it was required. From the outside, the Hartmans looked like a polished Boston family, a surgeon father, a university lecturer, mother, a tidy colonial home with trimmed hedges and framed vacation photos lining the hallway. But inside, there was a quiet hierarchy everyone understood without it ever being spoken. Victoria, my older sister, filled every room with the kind of effortless light my parents adored. She had their features, their charm, their expectations wrapped neatly around her like a birthright. And me, I was the girl they constantly reminded to try harder. Some memories arrive softly like dust motes floating in sunbeams. Others hit like sharp glass. I remember sitting at the dining table, the smell of roasted chicken in the air, while my parents bragged about Victoria's private school achievements. When the conversation shifted to me, the tone changed lighter, obligatory, dismissive. "Lily's independent," my mom would say with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. She's used to figuring things out. Independent was their polite word for overlooked. I started working at 16, saving every spare dollar in a chipped jar under my bed. Meanwhile, Victoria got a brand new car with a bow on top and a celebratory dinner. When I left for college, it was in a rattling used Toyota I'd bought myself. Victoria left in a sleek sedan, our father proudly parked in the driveway, neighbors watching. Still, I tried. I tried to be enough. I tried to be seen. By my 20s, I'd carved out a path in marketing, nothing glamorous, just steady work at a mid-size agency. I was good at it too, even if my mother's lips tightened whenever I mentioned my job. "You could have chosen something more meaningful," she'd sigh already, imagining me in a white coat like my father or a lecture hall like her. It was around then that Ethan appeared in my life, a software engineer with gentle eyes, a steady way of listening, and no interest in the games my family played. With him, I felt something unfamiliar ease. He didn't see me as the shadow sister or the family disappointment. He saw me, entirely. I hoped naively that my family would see him too. But the first time I brought him home for Thanksgiving, the temperature in the room dropped. My father sized him up in seconds. My mother asked questions that sounded like compliments, but weren't. And Victoria, glowing in her engagement ring, gave Ethan a polite, bored smile before diving into another story about Andrew's remarkable connections. I tried to ignore the feeling building in my chest, that familiar tightening, that quiet, practiced acceptance of being second. But something shifted that night when my father tapped his glass for attention and launched into a congratulatory speech about Victoria's upcoming wedding. The pride in his voice was warm and rich, a warmth I had never once felt turned toward me. I didn't know it then, but that dinner was the first tremor. The real break was still coming. The breaking point didn't arrive with an explosion. It came quietly disguised as a Sunday dinner my parents claimed was just to talk. Ethan and I arrived with a bottle of wine and cautious optimism. I kept telling myself this was a chance, maybe the chance to feel like part of the family instead of a footnote. But the moment we stepped into the dining room, I felt it, the stiffness in the air, the way my mother's smile faltered before settling into something too polite. The table was set simply no celebration in sight. My father didn't even look up from his glass when he greeted us. We made small talk while the lasagna cooled on the counter, weather traffic Ethan's job. Not a single question about our engagement. Not one. Finally, when my mother poured coffee, I took a breath and said, "We wanted to talk about the wedding. We're keeping it small, but we hoped maybe you'd want to be involved." My father set down his mug with a soft click. And what exactly does that mean? The tone in his voice wasn't confusion, it was accusation. Ethan leaned forward steady. "We're not expecting anything. Just thought a conversation would be respectful." My mother folded her hands. "Respectful is following the traditions of this family. Victoria understands that. She always has." There it was, the comparison sharpened to a blade. I swallowed. We're not asking for $100,000. Just support." My father exhaled through his nose, irritation radiating off him. "Lily, your sister has made choices aligned with our values. She's marrying someone of her standing. She's invested in maintaining our family's reputation." My mother's voice followed like a second blow. "You haven't." Ethan straightened beside me, but I lifted a hand. "Don't." I needed to hear this. Maybe I always had. My father looked me directly in the eye, the surgeon precision in his tone. "You don't deserve any help." The words landed like a dropped scalpel, cold, exact, irrevocable. Something inside me went still, not shattered, not broken, just still like water moments before it freezes. Ethan said something I don't remember what. My mother added a soft, "It's for your own good," which was almost worse. Victoria wasn't even there, but somehow she filled the room anyway, her framed photos on the wall, her perfect life held up as the silent justification for my punishment. I placed my napkin on the table. "We should go." My mother reached out too late, murmuring my name, but there was no warmth in it, no regret, just habit. On the drive home, Ethan held my hand, thumb brushing over my knuckles, but I barely felt it. My father's words echoed in loops, settling into places I didn't know were still vulnerable. "You don't deserve any help." By morning, the echo had hardened into resolve. I blocked their numbers, deleted our family group chat, removed myself from every thread of obligation I'd been clutching out of hope. And then I walked forward into a life where I wouldn't wait for them to see me. Cutting contact sounded dramatic when I said it out loud, but in practice, it looked strangely ordinary. I woke up that Monday, made coffee, and sat at the small kitchen table beside Ethan. The morning light came through the blinds in narrow stripes. I opened my phone, stared at my family, thread photos of vacations I wasn't invited to, updates about Victoria's wedding I'd read with quiet hope, and tapped "Leave conversation." The screen blinked. Gone. Then I blocked my parents. Blocked Victoria. My chest tightened, but it didn't break. It felt like undoing a knot I'd been carrying for years. "Are you sure?" Ethan asked gently. "No," I admitted. "But I know I can't keep living like that." And so I didn't. Instead, I threw myself into work. My agency was understaffed and overworked, perfect for someone desperate to stay busy. I pitched new ideas, took on more clients, and discovered I wasn't just good at marketing, I was exceptional. I understood people. I understood stories. And clients noticed. 3 months in, I was promoted. 6 months in a major company requested me specifically. A year later, I quit and launched my own digital startup with 2 coworkers who believed in me more than my family ever had. We worked out of a tiny office above a coffee shop, the kind of place where the heater rattled in the winter and the windows fogged in the rain. But the energy was electric. Every day felt like building something out of thin air, something that belonged entirely to me. Ethan was there through it all, showing up with takeout late-night pep talks or a quiet hug when the pressure felt crushing. He never resented my ambition. He fueled it. By the second year, our client list had tripled. We weren't just surviving, we were thriving. Investors started reaching out. I'd stare at their emails and think about my father's voice telling me what I didn't deserve. Funny how success sounds different when you earn it in silence. Meanwhile, my parents remained exactly where I left them, far away. No birthday cards, no just checking in, nothing. Their absence strangely became a kind of clarity, a relief. Ethan proposed the night we signed our first big contract. No elaborate setup, no staged photos, just the 2 of us on our apartment balcony, the city humming below. He held out a simple ring and said, "I want to build a life with you, one that doesn't hurt." I cried, not because of the proposal, but because for the first time in my life, someone chose me without conditions. And when we bought our home, a modern, glass-lined place in the hills outside the city, it wasn't meant to impress anyone. It wasn't a trophy. It wasn't revenge. It was proof. Proof that choosing myself hadn't ruined anything. Proof that I wasn't who my parents said I was. Proof that life could grow in the very space they abandoned. We moved in on a warm summer evening. The sunset hit the windows and filled the house with gold. Ethan wrapped his arm around my waist and whispered, "This is only the beginning." I believed him. But I didn't know that miles away someone else was about to find my address, someone whose curiosity wasn't innocent at all. I didn't know anything was wrong until Sophia texted me one quiet Saturday morning. "Hey, was that your sister driving past your house?" I froze mid-sip of coffee. Sophia lived a few houses down. She'd met Victoria once at our wedding. She knew exactly what she was seeing. Before I could reply, another message popped up. She stopped across the street, just staring, then sped off. A cold prickle worked its way up my spine. 3 years of silence, and now this. Ethan glanced over. "Everything okay?" I didn't answer right away, because I didn't know. Later that afternoon, my phone rang with a number I hadn't seen since the night my father told me I didn't deserve help. For a moment, I considered letting it go to voicemail. Curiosity won. Lily, my mother's voice, came through thinner than I remembered. "Sweetheart, we think it's time we talked." My grip tightened. "Why now?" A beat of hesitation. "Victoria mentioned she was in your neighborhood. She saw your home." There it was, not regret, not love, recognition of value. "We'd love to visit," she continued. "Rebuild. Start fresh." "Fine," I said. "This Saturday, 2 o'clock. When I hung up, Ethan was already watching me. "You ready for this?" "No," I admitted, "but I'm done running from ghosts." Saturday arrived bright and polished, as if the sky itself wanted to watch the show. Ethan and I set out coffee and pastries on the patio, neutral hospitality, nothing intimate. I wasn't offering closeness, just space. At 1:58, security called. "A family of 3 for you, Ms. Hartman." A black sedan rolled up the driveway. My father stepped out first, shoulders, stiff silver hair catching the light. My mother followed, smiling too widely. And then Victoria, looking smaller than I remembered, clutching her purse like a life raft. I opened the door. "Come in." My mother's eyes darted around the foyer. "Your home is lovely." I nodded. "Let's sit outside." We moved to the patio, sunlight hitting the glass railing. It was peaceful. Too peaceful for the storm I knew was coming. My father cleared his throat. "Lily, we're glad you agreed to see us. It's been too long. You chose the silence," I said softly. An awkward beat. My mother jumped in. "Families make mistakes, but we're here now and we'd like to reconnect." I studied her carefully. "Why?" She blinked. "Because we miss you. That all." Another silence, longer, heavier. Then my father said it. "The real reason. We've hit some financial difficulties." My stomach dropped, but not from shock. "Of course," he continued, voice tight. "The settlement from the malpractice case took more than expected. And I'm consulting now, but rebuilding my name is challenging." My mother leaned forward. "And Andrew, well, his startup could take off with the right investor, someone with resources." Victoria finally spoke, her voice small. "We thought maybe you could help." There it was. Not love, not apology, need. "I see," I said quietly. My mother smiled, relieved. "We knew you'd understand. Family supports family, just like we supported Victoria's wedding." My jaw tightened. Ethan's hand brushed mine under the table. My father continued. 200,000 would get us through this year, and another 200 to help Andrew launch properly. My mother nodded enthusiastically. "It's nothing to someone living in a house like this." A soft buzzing began in my ears, not anger, just clarity. A clarity I'd never had as a child kneeling in their shadow. "Before we continue," I said, "there's something you should know." 3 pairs of eyes lifted to me. "Victoria drove by my house earlier this week. She called you crying. Why does she have that?" Victoria's face flushed pink. Mom told you no. Someone who actually cares about me did." My father's jaw hardened. "Lily, that's enough." "No," I said. "It isn't." For the first time, I looked at them without searching for approval, without shrinking myself. "You didn't come because you missed me. You came because you realized I became something without you, and now you want a piece of it." My mother gasped. "How can you say that?" "Because for 28 years, I replied your love depended on how well I mirrored your expectations. And when I stopped mirroring them, you cut me off long before I cut you." My father leaned forward. "You are being dramatic. We did everything for you." I held his gaze. You gave Victoria a life of open doors. You gave me a lesson: earn everything yourself or get nothing. So I did. And now you want what I built." Victoria's eyes suddenly glistened. "Lily, we're family." I softened, not for her, but for the child she carried who hadn't asked for any of this. "I'm not giving you money," I said. "Not for the lawsuit, not for Andrew's venture, not for past debts or imagined obligations." My mother stood abruptly. "After everything we gave you, you gave me standards I could never meet," I said gently, "and pain that pushed me to build a life without you." They stared at me, stunned by the calm. But I continued, turning to Victoria. "I will do one thing. I'll set up an education fund for your baby. It will be in the child's name only. No withdrawals for anything else." Victoria's lips parted. You do that?" "Yes, because your child deserves a future untouched by this dysfunction." My father scoffed. "You think you can dictate terms to us? I'm not dictating anything," I said. "I'm choosing boundaries." I stood, signaling the end. "You came here for money. And you're leaving with something better clarity. You don't have access to me anymore. Not my resources, not my time, not my peace." My mother's voice wavered. "You'll regret this when we're gone." "I regretted trying to earn your love for years," I replied. "I'm done regretting things that keep me small." Ethan opened the door for them. One by one, they walked past him. My father stiff with anger, my mother trembling with disbelief. And Victoria, who paused, really paused, and whispered, "Thank you for the fund." When the car disappeared down the hill, I finally exhaled. The sun warmed my back. The house stood quiet, steady, earned. Ethan slipped an arm around me. "You okay?" I nodded. "I think this is the first time I've ever been okay. Because real revenge isn't cruelty, it's peace they can't touch." In the days after they left, the house felt different, lighter, as if someone had opened every window and let the past drift out. I kept waiting for the familiar sting of guilt or the ache of second-guessing, but neither came. Instead, there was a quiet steadiness in my chest, a sense of having stepped into the life I was meant to live. My parents didn't reach out again, not to argue, not to apologize. Silence this time felt like acceptance of a truth they could no longer bend. I wasn't theirs to control anymore. Victoria sent a short message thanking me once more for the education fund. Nothing more, nothing less. It was the first time she'd spoken to me without superiority in her voice. Work continued to grow. Our startup signed another major contract, and Ethan and I found ourselves settling into routines that didn't carry old wounds. Sometimes on quiet mornings, I'd sip coffee on the patio and look at the hills beyond our home, thinking about how close I'd come to shrinking my life to fit their vision. Instead, I built something bigger, something mine. And the peace that came with it was the kind no one could take away. I've learned that family isn't defined by blood wealth or expectations. It's defined by who shows up with love that doesn't need to be earned. If my story hit something inside you, share your thoughts below. And if you've ever had to rebuild your life from the ground up, you're not alone here. Subscribe, like, and stay with me for the next story. There's always another truth waiting to be told.